Harry Shearer, who plays, of course, bassist Derek Smalls, is our guest on the Steve Show today. He'll be here chatting not only about his contribution to that, but of course as the voice of, Harry, I mean, you can fill me in here. We've got Mr. Burns,
Principal Skinner,
Otto,
Reverend
Lenny.
Lovejoy.
He does many of the voices on The Simpsons, although my suspicion is that he's contractually obligated to not do any of those on any kind of low-budget Six Music radio show. So I fear that you'll have to take that on good faith. But yes, and obviously also he has many strings to his bow as well, and so we'll chat to him very soon. Very excited about that. And as I say, we're very pleased as well to have Sammy's father in the house. Now, Sammy, I understand that you have organised for me something, I'm loath to say quiz, but something which would allow us to perhaps get the full measure of your father. What have you got planned?
It's a bit of a true and false thing, and can I just say I'm really annoyed that it's like more than 18 months I've been doing the show. I haven't missed a single show. The only one I'm not there, Harry Shearer's in, and I'm stuck in a room with my dad. I'm used to being stuck in a room with my dad. That's not fair. So anyway, it's a true or false quiz. So there's some stories from my dad's past. I think you know by now that it's a pretty colourful one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you just a sentence or an idea, and you've got to guess if it's true or if it's false.
Okay, good, alright.
Do you want me to start?
Please do.
Okay. When my dad was a baby, he lived in a car.
When your father was a baby, he lived in a car. Wow. Now then, what I'm picturing is a baby living by its own wits.
Yeah.
In a car, so that it doesn't drive anywhere. The car is kind of overgrown. There's grass. He scavenges through bins. Perhaps does odd baby jobs, maybe for other babies. Like he's sometimes a bouncer outside of sort of 2-year-olds' birthday parties.
He's a baby bouncer.
A baby bouncer. They got a little Wendy House rave going on. He stood outside going "Nye-nye-nye-nye," which means you can't come in. You're wearing trainers.
Yeah.
Either that or. Well, I can't even think of any other scenario where a baby would live in a car.
Not for any length of time. I mean, you could leave a child in a car while you're doing your shopping and forget about it.
You could
That's
comfortably
easily done.
leave a child in a hot car whilst you go to the beach.
Yeah.
As I'm sure he did of Sammy many times. But
Probably.
did he true or false? I mean, you know, I'm inclined to say true to all of these, is my suspicion.
living in a car.
No, I'm
Where'd
saying
you wash? You can't wash. There's no washing.
well, I presume you lie him on the bonnet and just put the windscreen wipers on. And some of that fluid, that's fine, isn't it? If you're already living in a car, I think washing's the least of your concerns.
Yeah, you've got a cigar lighter.
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's
so he's
fine.
gonna
For whenever he gets his cigars. His little baby cigars. Probably cigarillos. I'm going to say false. Even with your father, it's got to be false, that.
Dad?
Well, in fact, that was true. We were, as a newborn, we were homeless for quite a while and had to live in an old car parked in a side street. I don't have much recollection of it, actually, but obviously...
That's extraordinary.
That's incredible.
I'm presuming you mean with your parents and not the
Yes.
wolves that raised you.
It was my parents.
Wow, and actually you obviously don't remember much, but do you how long roughly were you in the car for?
Again, I have no recollection, but it was weeks, I believe, until we were rehoused, shall we say.
That's extraordinary.
I think it was in protest, actually, because my dad tried to get somewhere for us to live. We'd just been evicted from somewhere or other for whatever reason, and the local council just weren't forthcoming, so I think it was in protest.
And was it
And it worked.
your parents' car or just someone else's car?
No,
They
it
came back
was-
and found 3 people living there.
No, it was my dad's car, yes.
That's remarkable. Wow.
This is in the 50s, you got to remember, it's a long time
Oh, it was a
ago.
different time. It was a different
was,
time.
yes.
Cars were
You
huge
could
in
just
the
leave your car
50s.
door open then.
Oh, you could leave your car door open, you know, and cars then had lounges, bathrooms.
They didn't have cigarette lighters, that's for sure.
Wow, there wasn't even a radio, probably.
No.
Jeez, well, that's extraordinary. Well, I'll tell you, that set the bar.
That's true.
That set the
That's
bar for
true.
this quiz. That's fantastic.
Oh,
well,
there's a
listen,
lot more where that came from.
great. Well, we'll return to these later. Once lived in a car. That's just going into the file. And thank you very much indeed for that. We'll out with there's more from where that comes from. But yes, we've, as I say, got an even bigger guest than your good self, Mr. Harry Shearer. They can, it's all right. This is a pre-record. They can edit that after hockey. Steve Show, BBC Six Music with me, Steve Merchant, my little gang of cronies, Sammy in the north with her father, and huge round of applause, please, for Mr. Harry Shearer. I'll be honest with you, Harry. I think you may indeed be the most exciting guest we've ever had, which I think says a lot about you and an awful lot about the show
Way too much about the show
as well. But
I'm honored, Stephen.
well, thank you very much. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I can't believe that you would deign to even bother.
Oh, there's no deigning involved.
Oh, well, please, you've not heard this show and
no,
this station.
you're right. I didn't know you were doing this show. Last I heard you were doing the podcast.
No one knows I'm doing this show.
Oh, really?
That's one of the problems.
Ah,
No, still doing the podcast. Can't talk about that.
No, of course
different
not.
franchise.
Yeah.
But no, this has really started as an excuse to play some music and has subsequently become, as you can see, a kind of zoo radio.
If you're not careful.
You know what? I would love to have done that, but I'm too scared of death threats. And
Yeah.
the like. The BBC now is riddled with would-be Howard Sterns who are constantly effing and blinding and scaring people. So I'm trying to go the opposite now.
well,
I'm trying
no,
to
you
be
don't have to do
non-offensive.
that. You just have to offer to spank aspiring starlets. And,
Yeah, that seems to be his entire premise.
it's his
isn't it?
entire thing now.
He gets Playboy models on and
Yeah.
and just looks at them on the radio.
Spanks
which is
them on the
bizarre. Only he is enjoying that, presumably.
exactly. You're enjoying his enjoyment.
Right.
It's a vicarious thing.
Now you yourself have hosted a radio show in the States,
For
which was
25
25
years, yeah.
Tell us about it. It's called Le Show.
The show, and it's on all over the world via the internet, the wonderful internet. It's just because I never did stand up, so I was looking for a way to make myself keep writing and doing characters and
Yeah.
and just basically do what you do on the radio, which is please yourself.
Every week for 25 years.
Self-pleasuring, yes.
So rather like Howard Stern, but in a different week.
1 hour a week. Just half as much as you do.
1 hour a week, and you
Yeah.
play music as well?
I play a little music. I used to play more music, and then something happened, because it was basically just an entertainment show, and then I found out during the run-up to the recent unpleasantness in Iraq that Americans were living in sort of an information bubble.
Yeah.
And I had a microphone, and I had access to information that apparently wasn't getting out in the media, so I started being more informational, and then after the disaster hit New Orleans, and it was a double whammy because the national media got that story all wrong, and I live in New Orleans, so the show is more informational than I ever intended it to be, but it's still basically entertainment.
Because I've heard some of the shows, and it's not unknown for you to sort of read large sections of things you've gleaned, I guess, from sort of foreign press.
Yeah,
or-
and I make sarcastic remarks about it from time to time.
Sure, and there's one thing that solves, I've discovered, the world's problems. It is sarcasm. Heavy doses of irony and sarcasm.
That's it.
Have endlessly sorted problems. I think that's how the Vietnam War was ended.
That's correct.
Through satirical songs.
And that's how Napoleon was ousted from Russia.
exactly. Made sneery remarks about his height.
That's correct. Speaking of which, you've not gotten any shorter since the last time I saw you, and that's unacceptable.
I thank you for that. It's just one of the reasons why I'm on the radio, so people aren't stunned by my freakish height and incredible beauty.
Yeah.
It's interesting. that actually-
Marfan syndrome, Watch out for that. Marfan syndrome.
What's Marfan?
Oh, it affects only tall people.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to put anything in your head about it.
No, please do. Marfan syndrome.
Marfan, you've never heard about it?
No.
Doctors didn't warn you about
Keeping
it?
it from me, clearly. Everyone behind my back has been
Yeah.
laughing and...
Yeah, no.
What does it mean?
It's a serious syndrome.
Thanks.
But I mean,
I'm not a giant. We should make this clear. I'm
No.
6'7". I don't yet. Giganticism is a sort of 7 foot.
no, this is not a problem of giants.
This is a problem for anyone over 5'8".
Yeah.
And what's
Anyone taller than me.
What are the symptoms?
Sudden death. No, seriously, there was a woman in the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles, Flo Hyman. You should pardon the expression. Flo, I can't say Flo on the radio, right? Who was a champion volleyball player, and she just dropped dead.
From
Marfan syndrome.
So, are you making this up?
No, I'm not.
Is this a bit?
No, it's totally not.
This is
And-
satire again. He's trying to.
And it's not meant to, make you fearful or anything.
But you can't tell me anything more other than that. I don't know. We don't know what
You
the
have a
symptoms are.
computer at your desk there. You can Google it.
Even though you could explain it to me.
Even though I could, yeah, if I wanted to.
Right, Harry, can you look up Marfan?
I will do, I'll try.
Yeah, I don't know how we spell that.
Marfan.
He even knows that. I actually went to my very first basketball game while I was in Los Angeles.
Really? When was
And
this?
This was not very long ago at all. And what?
And
was,
you didn't call me?
Well, I lost your number.
Oh, nice.
You remember we had
Yeah.
dinner one time,
Yeah.
and I did send you a letter because you sent me some gifts. And I sent you a letter of thanks,
Yeah.
or an email, and I heard nothing back from you. I presumed maybe you had just felt like, I don't want to get a friendship going with this guy.
No.
So I have no showbiz friends because I'm terrified. I always feel like I'm upsetting people, or that they just, we don't want this guy.
You
We
are
had one
so
dinner with him.
British.
I am. I would love to be mates with you and hang out.
Well, that's going a little far.
Okay, sure. But maybe an occasional
Pen
email.
pals.
Yeah. But anyway, I went to the basketball game, and it was on the floor.
Yeah.
Good seats,
Yeah,
honestly.
of course.
And it felt like I was coming home. It felt like I was amongst my people, Harry. Because there, of course, tall people are gods.
Yeah.
And it just was wonderful to sort of look them in the eye and high-fiving them. They probably thought I was a great British basketball player
Yeah.
that no one had yet heard of. Oh,
And none of them keeled over from Marfan syndrome.
Don't get too friendly with them.
We'll
They
find
could
out.
drop down at any moment.
We'll find out what that is in a second, but we obviously commiserations because you're not among your many talents, and for those that aren't yet familiar, obviously we know you from your contribution to The Simpsons and from Spinal Tap, and obviously all your other work in films and so on. But also, of course, as a musical, as a satirist. Would you label yourself a satirist?
Satirist, sure.
Would you be happy
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
And you had an album which is just Grammy nominated.
Yeah.
I'm Lost to George Carlin. Is that?
Lost to the late George Carlin.
Which I suppose is no bad thing. If you
Well,
can
I was trying to spread the rumor I was dead too, just to try to, 'cause death is so freaking hot. You know?
Were you pretty upset then? Were you banking on that for sales?
No, I'd lost one last year and sort of had been around the routine, so I kind of, my head knew I was going to lose to George Carlin. My heart thought maybe not.
Sure,
You know,
sure. And so we're going to play a tune from your album. But can you just fill us in a bit? What's
Yeah.
the sort of conceit of the album?
It's a record totally devoted to lampooning musically the people who were part of the late unlamented George W. Bush administration. There's a song for each major player in it, and for a couple of the minor players. And this is about a minor but significant player. His name was John Yoo, and he was in the Justice Department. He wrote the memos that gave them the excuse to torture people. He was the guy who wrote the memos saying, torture isn't torture if you do it right. And so I thought he needs to be better known, so I wrote and performed a song called Who Is You?
Great, let's hear it.
Torture Memo Man!
From Harry Shearer's album Songs of the Bushman, that is Who Is You, about John Yoo, and there are songs on there obviously dedicated to both Colin Powell, we've got Paul Wolfowitz mentioned, and Condoleezza Rice,
Oh, yeah.
I guess the whole gang. The musicianship's really quite striking.
Thank you.
Well, one doesn't often expect that from, what you might loosely term comedy
Music? Yeah. Well, my wife, Judith Owen, who's a great musician, singer, songwriter, put me on notice. She said, because, she felt I was treading into her terrain. And she said, it's okay for you to do comedy music, but it damn well better sound like music. So
Sure, yeah,
I've been warned. So on this is the great Jeff Skunk, played with everybody from Steely Dan and the Doobies all the way up through people more recently, but has a second life in the government on the dark side, as it's called. And he came to this session for this record and brought his guitar, and he'd played up with us. He'd chatted with Spinal Tap a couple times, and we knew each other, but I wasn't really sure that he would want to do this, because I said to the producer, "You sure he'd want to play on this?" Is a little critical of
So he worked for the administration, did he? Or you
he's
you don't
still working
specify?
for he's working for the government, yeah.
Right.
And he said, "No, it'll be fine." So he comes in, and I'm still, I'm not sure that when he hears the lyrics, because the vocal is already on it, that he's just not going to pack up his guitar and say, "I'm not going to be a part of this," and storm out. No, he sets up his little amplifier and his instrument, starts playing, lays down these tracks. It's just in that zone where musicians get, which is why music is the most fun in the world. Just plays for about a solid hour, laying down tracks. Says, "Man, I gotta get out of the dark side. All I want to do is play music. Tell people to call me. People don't think I want to play anymore. They just tell them to call me." Packs up his guitar, walks to his car, gets into his car. "Oh, I almost forgot." And he has to go back to the studio. He said, "I almost forgot Artie, his weapon." He packed up his guitar and forgot his weapon.
Wow, you mean an actual?
An actual, yeah.
I thought you meant like
No.
in the way they call it the axe.
No, no.
Right, an actual weapon.
Yeah, he's armed. He arrives at the session armed.
And he just pops the revolver on the piano.
Yeah. Remembered the guitar. Remembered to take the guitar, but forgot Artie.
Wow. And I'm presuming